Smash subscribe if you dare to look behind walls most people pretend don't exist. Like this video if you believe the truth should never be buried. And comment below, do you think monsters are born or made? The sirens cut through the Colorado night like a blade. Red and blue lights bounced off the barren landscape outside ADX Florence, the most secure federal prison in America. Wind whipped across the high desert, rattling chain-link fences topped with coils of razor wire. Floodlights carved hard shadows into the concrete. Nothing moved out here unless it was supposed to. Except tonight, something had. Correctional officers were sprinting toward the inner perimeter, boots pounding against frozen gravel. A control tower alarm shrieked overhead, a sound that almost never rang. Inside the reinforced walls of the administrative maximum facility, silence was law. Inmates spent 23 hours a day alone in concrete cells designed to erase the outside world. There were no shadows to hide in. No corners unguarded. And yet, at 9:42 p.m., a body had been found. Lieutenant Marcus Hale was first through the steel door. He'd worked at ADX for 13 years, long enough to know that panic was contagious. His jaw was tight, movements precise. The corridor smelled faintly of disinfectant and something metallic. Blood. The inmate lay face down on the polished concrete outside a recreation pen, a narrow outdoor cage barely larger than a parking space. His hands were cuffed behind him. There were no visible gunshots, no obvious stab wounds. Just a thin, dark line circling his neck like a cruel necklace. The name on his jumpsuit read, Daniel Mercer. Mercer wasn't just any inmate. He had once run a transnational arms trafficking network that stretched across Eastern Europe and the American Midwest. He'd been convicted in federal court 3 years earlier and transferred to ADX Florence under the highest security designation. Prosecutors had called him a strategist of chaos. The media called him something else. Untouchable. Until tonight. Cameras? Hale asked. Reviewing now, a young officer replied, voice shaking. At ADX, cameras watched everything. Hallways, recreation areas, transfer corridors. Every movement was logged. Every door electronically sealed. For Mercer to end up dead outside his assigned path meant one of two things, a catastrophic failure, or help from the inside. Hale crouched beside the body. Mercer's eyes were open, frozen in an expression that wasn't fear. It was surprise. 3 hours earlier, Mercer had requested recreation time, as he did twice a week. He was escorted by 2 officers, compliant, silent. He rarely spoke. In the courtroom, he had been charismatic, almost theatrical. But inside ADX, isolation had carved him down to something sharper and quieter. Across the compound, in another concrete box, inmate Elias Varga pressed his ear to his cell door. Varga had once been Mercer's partner, until he wasn't. They'd built their empire together, moving weapons through shell companies and coded shipments. When the indictments came down, Varga claimed Mercer had tipped off authorities to secure a lighter sentence. Mercer denied it. Both men ended up in ADX, housed in separate units, forbidden from contact. Isolation doesn't erase grudges. It distills them. By midnight, a team from the Bureau of Prisons' Internal Investigative Unit was on site. Leading them was Special Agent Claire Donnelly, flown in from Washington. Donnelly had sharp eyes and a reputation for dismantling corruption quietly. She stepped into the corridor where Mercer's body had been removed, scanning the sterile walls. "Walk me through it," she said. Lieutenant Hale explained the timeline. No alarms during escort. No signs of forced entry. The recreation pen had been cleared. Mercer was alone for exactly 52 minutes. And during that time, Donnelly asked. No anomalies reported. She studied Hale for a second too long. Reported. In the surveillance room, they pulled up footage from the recreation yard. The screen showed Mercer pacing inside the caged enclosure. He looked smaller than his legend suggested. At 9:37 p.m., he stopped walking. He turned toward the far corner of the pen, the one angle partially obscured by structural beams. Then the feed flickered. Just for 2 seconds. When the image stabilized, Mercer was on the ground. Donnelly leaned closer. Rewind. They did. Frame by frame. At the moment before the flicker, Mercer's face shifted. Recognition. He was looking at someone. But there was no one there. Camera malfunction. Hale offered. Donnelly didn't answer. Instead, she requested footage from adjacent corridors, control logs, maintenance records. At ADX, coincidences were myths. By dawn, whispers were spreading through the facility. In a place designed for silence, rumor moved like electricity. Elias Varga heard the news during breakfast tray distribution. Mercer's dead, an officer muttered to another, thinking no one was listening. Varga sat on his concrete slab, staring at the narrow window that showed nothing but sky. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Back in the administrative wing, Donnelly reviewed staff assignments. One name surfaced repeatedly near Mercer's movement logs: Officer Nathan Reeves. Reeves was young, ambitious, and recently transferred from a medium security facility in Texas. His record was clean. Too clean. Donnelly requested an interview. Reeves sat stiffly across from her in a windowless office. "You were on rotation near the recreation corridor," she began. "Yes, Notice anything unusual?" "No, She slid a printed still image across the table, the frame just before the camera flickered. Mercer's eyes locked toward the blind spot. "Who stands there?" she asked. Reeves glanced down. For a fraction of a second, something cracked in his composure. "No one," he said. Donnelly leaned back. "You understand that ADX Florence is considered escape-proof. Murder-proof. If an inmate can be killed here, the entire system comes under scrutiny." Reeves swallowed. "I didn't kill him." "I didn't say you did." Silence filled the room. Then Donnelly dropped the first real bomb. "We pulled your financial records." His eyes widened. "Barely. A series of deposits over the last 6 months. Structured amounts. Just under reporting thresholds." Reeves said nothing. "Daniel Mercer moved millions before his arrest," Donnelly continued. "Hidden accounts we never recovered. Enough to make a correctional officer reconsider his salary." Reeves' jaw tightened. "You think I'd risk my career for some criminal?" "I think isolation creates desperation," she replied. "On both sides of the bars." Autopsy results came in that afternoon. Cause of death: ligature strangulation. The weapon: not recovered. No fibers matching prison-issued materials. No foreign DNA under Mercer's fingernails. It was as if the killer had appeared out of thin air and vanished the same way. But Donnelly knew better. Supermax prisons weren't haunted houses. They were machines. And machines required operators. She returned to the surveillance footage one more time. Frame by frame. Just before the glitch, she noticed something she hadn't seen before. A shadow. Not inside the recreation pen. Above it. On the catwalk used for maintenance access, an area supposedly locked during inmate recreation. "Who had clearance to that level last night?" she asked. Lieutenant Hale hesitated. "Maintenance and supervisory staff." "And Officer Reeves." Hale's silence was answer enough. As the sun dipped behind the Rockies, casting long shadows over ADX Florence, Donnelly authorized a search of the maintenance corridors. Behind a locked utility cabinet on the catwalk, they found it. A length of thin, industrial-grade cord. Clean. Coiled. Recently cut. And taped to the inside of the cabinet door, a small photograph. Daniel Mercer. Elias Varga. And a third man standing between them, smiling. Officer Nathan Reeves. The photo was old, taken years before any indictment. The 3 men stood outside a shipping warehouse in Baltimore. Reeves wasn't just a guard. He was part of the empire. And if Mercer had recognized him in that final second, it meant Mercer hadn't expected betrayal. Donnelly stared at the photo, pulse steady but mind racing. Because if Reeves had infiltrated ADX to silence Mercer, then someone on the outside had sent him. And Elias Varga was still alive. But when officers rushed to Varga's cell to place him in protective custody, they found the door sealed, the the lights on, the bunk neatly made. And the cell empty. But when they opened the locked basement access below his unit, what they found changed everything. The basement beneath ADX Florence was not a place inmates were ever meant to see. It was a labyrinth of concrete arteries running beneath the pristine geometry of the prison above, maintenance tunnels, cable conduits, emergency plumbing access points. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead as Agent Claire Donnelly descended the narrow metal staircase with Lieutenant Marcus Hale close behind her. The air was colder down there. Thicker. 2 officers stood frozen near an open service hatch. "You need to see this," one of them whispered. Donnelly stepped forward. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light. Then her eyes adjusted. Elias Varga was sitting upright against the far wall, wrists bound in front of him with the same thin industrial cord found in the catwalk cabinet. His prison jumpsuit was spotless. No visible injuries. No blood. His eyes were open. And he was breathing. Barely. Paramedics rushed in, cutting the restraints. Varga's pulse was weak but steady. A syringe lay discarded near his boot, emptied of a clear sedative normally used in the prison infirmary. "Someone wanted him alive," Hale muttered. Donnelly crouched beside Varga. There was bruising along his jaw, fresh. A message written in violence. Not an execution. A warning. Upstairs, Officer Nathan Reeves was no longer in the interview room. He was gone. Security logs showed his keycard accessing a staff exit at 5:12 p.m. His shift had technically ended at 5 o'clock. He walked out. Hale asked, disbelief creeping into his voice. "Walked," Donnelly confirmed. No alarm. No resistance. ADX Florence had been designed to keep the worst criminals inside. No one had ever imagined they might need to keep one of their own from leaving. Varga was transported under heavy guard to a federal medical facility in Denver. Donnelly followed. When he regained consciousness hours later, he stared at the hospital ceiling as if calculating angles. "You're lucky to be alive," Donnelly told him. Varga's voice was hoarse. "Luck has nothing to do with it." "Then what does?" He turned his head slowly, meeting her eyes. There was intelligence there. And something colder. Timing. Donnelly pulled a chair closer. "Reeves tried to kill you." A faint smile touched Varga's lips. "No. If Nathan wanted me dead, I'd be dead." "You knew him before ADX?" "Yes." "You were in business together." "We were in business with Daniel Mercer," Varga corrected. "Nathan was logistics." A prison guard doesn't become logistics for an international arms network by accident. "No," Varga agreed softly. "He becomes it because he's useful." Donnelly studied him. "Mercer recognized him before he died." "That doesn't surprise me." "Why kill Mercer and spare you?" Varga's gaze drifted back to the ceiling. "Because Daniel was always the liability." Back in Florence, Colorado, federal marshals were tearing through Reeves' apartment. It was immaculate. Too immaculate. No personal photos. No clutter. A life curated to leave no trace. But hidden beneath the kitchen sink, taped behind a plumbing panel, they found a prepaid satellite phone. Last outgoing call, 3 minutes after Mercer's death. Destination, an encrypted relay bouncing through servers in Prague, then disappearing. International. Donnelly listened to the recording pulled from partial metadata capture. Only 10 seconds had been retrievable. A male voice. "Calm. American. It's done." Then the line went dead. News of the death inside ADX Florence had not yet leaked to the press. The Bureau of Prisons was desperate to contain it. A murder inside the most secure prison in the United States would ignite headlines across America and Europe. Untouchable fortress breached. But Donnelly wasn't thinking about headlines. She was thinking about patterns. Mercer eliminated. Varga nearly eliminated. Reeves vanished. And a shadow network stretching beyond U.S. borders. She requested Mercer's sealed case files. The financials prosecutors had never fully unraveled. Hidden accounts. Shell corporations. Dead drops across Belgium, Romania, and Chicago. One name surfaced repeatedly in encrypted email fragments recovered years earlier: Orpheus. An alias. A coordinator. The ghost behind the empire. At the time of Mercer's conviction, investigators believed Orpheus was either dead or retired. Now Donnelly wasn't so sure. 2 days later, surveillance footage from a truck stop 70 miles south of Florence surfaced. Reeves. Baseball cap pulled low. Civilian clothes. Calm stride. He paid cash for fuel. Bought a burner phone. Disappeared into the night heading east. He didn't look like a man running. He looked like a man following instructions. In Denver, Varga requested to speak again. Donnelly arrived alone this time. "You're hunting Nathan," Varga said without preamble. "Yes." "You won't find him." "That sounds confident." "It's realistic." "Why spare you?" she pressed again. Varga's expression shifted, irritation, almost admiration. "Because I'm leverage." "For what?" "For what Daniel stole." Donnelly leaned in. "We froze Mercer's known accounts." "You froze what you could see," Varga replied. "Daniel was many things. Careless wasn't one of them." A chill crept through her. "You're saying Mercer hid something from Orpheus?" "I'm saying Daniel believed he could outsmart a man who doesn't forgive." "And you?" "I believed Daniel would get us all killed." Silence stretched between them. Then Varga delivered the line that tightened everything. "Nathan didn't infiltrate ADX to silence Daniel. He infiltrated it to find out what Daniel did with the money." Donnelly flew back to Florence that night. She stood outside the imposing concrete walls of ADX Florence as darkness settled over the desert. From a distance, it looked almost serene. Controlled. Absolute. But inside, something had slipped through. She requested one more review of Mercer's final weeks. Every letter he received. Every legal visit. Every commissary purchase. One detail stood out. Mercer had declined legal counsel twice in the month before his death, highly unusual for a man known to file appeals obsessively. Instead, he had requested additional writing paper. Dozens of sheets. His cell had been searched after the murder. Nothing found except routine correspondence. But Donnelly knew criminals like Mercer rarely wrote things plainly. She returned to the evidence locker and retrieved Mercer's personal effects. Inside a legal envelope were pages of what appeared to be philosophical ramblings, quotes about isolation, power, betrayal. But the margins were uneven. She measured them. The left margin on every page was wider than standard formatting. Deliberate. She overlaid the pages against each other. Certain letters aligned vertically. A code. Hours passed as she transcribed. Finally, the hidden message emerged. "The account is not money. It is a name." Her pulse quickened. A name. Not cash. Not offshore funds. Mercer hadn't stolen money from Orpheus. He had stolen identity. The next morning, Interpol sent a priority alert to Donnelly's secure line. A man matching Nathan Reeves' description had boarded a flight from Toronto to Vienna under a false passport. Vienna. A city long whispered in sealed case files tied to Orpheus operations. Donnelly felt the pieces sliding into place. Reeves wasn't fleeing prosecution. He was returning to his handler. And if Mercer's hidden message was true, then somewhere, locked behind layers of false identities, was the real name of Orpheus. A name powerful enough to trigger murder inside America's most secure prison. But as Donnelly prepared to brief federal authorities, her secure phone buzzed again. This time, the call came from Denver. Elias Varga was gone. Not escaped. Transferred. The authorization bore her digital signature. A signature she had never given. And the transport team that supposedly moved him didn't exist. Donnelly stared at the forged paperwork, a cold realization settling in. Someone inside the system was clearing paths. Reeves had been an entry point. Mercer had been a liability. Varga was leverage. And Orpheus. Orpheus was still orchestrating. As she turned toward the prison looming behind her, a final message arrived on her encrypted device. No caller ID. Just text. "You're closer than Daniel ever was." Walk away. Donnelly didn't walk away. But for the first time since arriving in Colorado, she understood something terrifying. The walls of ADX Florence weren't designed to keep evil contained. They were designed to hide it. And if Orpheus could move prisoners, forge federal signatures, and plant operatives inside a Supermax facility, then this wasn't just a prison murder. It was a controlled demolition of trust, from the inside out. And somewhere in Europe, Nathan Reeves was about to hand over something that could expose a name powerful enough to shake governments. Unless someone silenced him first. Vienna was grey the morning Nathan Reeves landed. Not the romantic grey of postcards, but the cold, bureaucratic grey of a city that had seen empires rise and fall and learned how to survive both. Snow clung to the edges of sidewalks. Men in dark coats moved quickly through the airport, heads down, collars up. Reeves moved like one of them. Calm. Unremarkable. Invisible. But he wasn't alone. By the time his plane touched down, Special Agent Claire Donnelly was already in the air with a joint task force briefing transmitted mid-flight. Interpol had flagged the passport Reeves used, a near-perfect counterfeit tied to a dormant identity created 12 years earlier. Whoever Orpheus was, he didn't improvise. He archived. Reeves exited the terminal without luggage. A black sedan waited near the curb. No license plate on the front bumper. He didn't hesitate. He got in. Donnelly landed 3 hours later. A small team from Austria's Federal Criminal Police Office met her on the tarmac. They had already pulled city surveillance tied to the sedan. It traveled northeast, toward the outskirts of Vienna, toward an industrial district along the Danube Canal. Abandoned warehouses, the Austrian inspector said. Mostly shell companies. Ownership structures loop through Cyprus and Luxembourg. Shells inside shells. Classic Mercer architecture. Except Mercer was dead. They moved in before nightfall. Donnelly insisted on being there. Inside the warehouse, the air smelled of oil and dust. High windows let in slivers of fading daylight. Footsteps echoed against concrete. The sedan was parked inside. Empty. Upstairs, someone whispered. They ascended a metal staircase that groaned under weight. At the top was a glass-walled office overlooking the warehouse floor. And inside it, Nathan Reeves. He was seated at a steel desk. Alone. A laptop open in front of him. A single folder beside it. He didn't reach for a weapon. He didn't run. He simply looked up as the door burst open. "You're late," he said. Donnelly stepped forward, gun steady but lowered. "Where is he?" Reeves smiled faintly. "You flew across the Atlantic for me." "I flew for Orpheus." "He doesn't exist," Reeves replied calmly. "Not the way you think." Officers secured the room, checking corners, sweeping for additional suspects. "Clear. Too clear." "Mercer hid something," Donnelly said. "A name." Reeves nodded once. He thought he could leverage it. Trade it for protection. But Daniel misunderstood the game. "And Varga? Insurance." "Insurance against what?" Reeves' eyes sharpened. "Against you." Before she could respond, he slid the folder across the desk. "Go on," he said. Donnelly opened it. Inside were copies of Internal Bureau of Prisons communications. Transfer authorizations. Budget reallocations. Clearance adjustments. All signed. By her. Her chest tightened. "They're forged," she said immediately. "Yes," Reeves agreed. Convincingly. "By who?" Reeves tapped the laptop screen. "By the system you serve." On the display was a complex web of digital routing logs, false approvals bouncing through federal servers, masked behind legitimate encryption keys. "This isn't one corrupt official," Reeves continued. "It's structural. Access layered over access. A framework designed to move people quietly when necessary. Move them where? Wherever stability requires." Donnelly felt the room narrow around her. Mercer wasn't just an arms trafficker, Reeves said. He was a contractor. Informal. Deniable. When governments needed weapons to appear without fingerprints, Daniel's network delivered. And Orpheus. Reeves' expression shifted. Not fear, not pride. Resignation. Orpheus isn't a man, he said. It's a clearance tier. Silence. An internal designation, he continued. Reserved for operations too sensitive for paper trails. Mercer worked under it. So did Varga. So did I. You were recruited. Yes. By who? That's the point, Reeves said quietly. You don't know. Donnelly's mind raced. ADX Florence. A Supermax facility housing terrorists, cartel leaders, spies. A perfect vault for secrets too dangerous to expose. You infiltrated ADX to find Mercer's leverage, she said slowly. Yes. And when you realized he'd hidden a name? Reeves nodded. It wasn't money. It was a list. A list of what? Authorized operations tied to Orpheus. Dates. Locations. Oversight signatures. Her pulse thudded. Names of officials. Reeves held her gaze. Yes. And you killed him. Reeves didn't look away. He forced my hand. You strangled him in a recreation cage. I silenced a liability, he corrected. The same way liabilities have been silenced for decades. The Austrian officers shifted uneasily. Donnelly felt anger rise, but beneath it, something colder. Understanding. Varga, she said. Alive, Reeves replied. Relocated. By who? Reeves' lips curved slightly. Authorization came through your credentials. The words hit like a physical blow. That's impossible. Is it? He turned the laptop toward her. On screen was a live access dashboard. Her credentials. Active. Logged in from a server located inside Washington, D.C. Someone was using her clearance in real time. You think this ends with me? Reeves asked softly. You think arresting a field operative collapses Orpheus? Donnelly's phone vibrated. Secure channel. She stepped aside and answered. The voice on the other end was clipped, controlled. Agent Donnelly, you are ordered to disengage and return to the United States immediately. On whose authority? On federal authority. Name it. A pause. Then, Orpheus. The line went dead. She turned back toward Reeves. He was watching her carefully. They'll discredit you, he said. Internal leak. Procedural misconduct. You'll spend years clearing your name while the structure remains intact. Why tell me this? Reeves' composure faltered for the first time. Because Daniel was right about one thing. Which was? That someone eventually would look too closely. Donnelly stepped closer. Why spare Varga? Reeves hesitated. Because Varga still believes in the mission. And you don't. He exhaled slowly. I believed in stability. In preventing chaos. But somewhere along the way, the line moved. We stopped containing threats and started manufacturing leverage. He gestured toward the laptop. Everything Mercer hid is there. Encrypted. Yes. Key. Reeves looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. This unlocks the list, he said. Names. Dates. Clearances. He placed it on the desk between them. A confession without paperwork. A bomb without a timer. You're giving this to me, she asked. I'm giving it to someone who still believes the system can be repaired. Footsteps thundered on the stairs below. Not Austrian police. Heavier. More coordinated. Donnelly's instincts screamed. Reeves heard them too. They move fast, he said quietly. The office door exploded inward. Black-clad tactical officers flooded the room. No insignia. No national markings. Weapons raised. Step away from the device, one shouted. Donnelly froze. Reeves didn't. He grabbed the flash drive and thrust it into her hand. Run. Gunshots cracked through glass. Chaos erupted. Donnelly dove behind a steel cabinet as bullets shredded the office walls. Austrian officers returned fire, confusion splintering command. Reeves remained standing. One shot. Center mass. He staggered backward against the window. For a fraction of a second, his eyes met Donnelly's. No fear. No regret. Just certainty. Then he fell through shattered glass, disappearing to the warehouse floor below. Silence followed like a vacuum. Hours later, the warehouse was sealed. Official statements described a joint counterterrorism operation. No mention of Orpheus. No mention of ADX Florence. Nathan Reeves was declared deceased in an armed confrontation with unidentified extremists. Case closed. But in a secure hotel room overlooking the Danube, Claire Donnelly stared at the flash drive resting on the desk. She hadn't surrendered it. Not yet. Her laptop screen glowed in the dark. The encryption prompt blinked. She inserted the drive. A password field appeared. She thought of Mercer's hidden message. The account is not money. It is a name. Slowly, she typed. Orpheus. Access granted. A directory unfolded across the screen. Operation codes. Budget lines. And names. Not criminals. Officials. Supervisors. Oversight committees. Embedded across agencies in the United States and Europe. At the top of the list. Clearance tier. OOS. Active oversight. Rotational. Current custodian. Classified. Her secure phone buzzed again. One new message. No sender. You were warned. The hotel hallway outside her room creaked. A shadow passed beneath the door. Donnelly closed the laptop, heart steady despite the storm inside her. They thought the walls of ADX Florence could contain secrets. They thought Orpheus was untouchable. They thought killing Mercer and Reeves would bury the truth. But now she had the list. And somewhere in Colorado, inside a concrete cell designed to erase identity, Elias Varga was waiting. Not as a prisoner, but as a believer. Because 3 months after Daniel Mercer's death, a quiet transfer order would move Varga to another undisclosed facility. Authorized. Approved. By Orpheus. And the next time a body was found inside a prison no one escapes from, it wouldn't belong to an inmate. It would belong to someone who tried to expose the system. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for what comes next. Hit subscribe, because some prisons don't just hold criminals. They protect secrets.